Welcome to the age of the fierce heroine, right? We've got Wonder Woman, Jyn Erso, Katniss, Moana. But honestly, some of the movies that most influenced my own journey were Under the Tuscan Sun, Eat, Pray, Love, and Wild. Stories of real women, well, let's be more specific. Stories of white privileged women who leave behind the comforts of the known to strike out on a journey of self-discovery. Now, my own story follows a similar arc. The unexpected death of a woman who was like a second mother to me propels me on the journey of a lifetime. I leave behind my life in New York City to take a job at Ichabod Crane, the school named after the quirky and superstitious teacher from Washington Irving's Legend of Sleepy Hollow. Now, it was quite a coincidence, an amusing coincidence, that the textbook series we were utilizing at Ichabod was entitled Journeys. Because I'm going to tell you, living alone for the first time in your life in the middle of 48 acres, where you are literally and metaphorically in the woods, is most certainly going to take you on a journey. Lucky for me, I had a mentor, spiritual mentor, who kind of functioned as my Yoda. And with her help and the help of some pretty humble communities that taught me what spirituality means with 2 feet on the ground, I was able to slay the dragons of my mind. And I reclaimed and rediscovered that little girl in the reflection of my students' innocent eyes. Now, that's a lot of story and a lot of drama, which is great. Life is story and drama. But the truth is the years between 2014 and 2017, when I was living and working in upstate, it was a time of great heartbreak, of which I endured a very dark night of the soul. And I reclaimed that little girl who believes in absolute and utter potential. And the truth is, prior to going on this journey of mine, I was working at Emma Lazarus High School in Chinatown, the school named after the poet whose words give us your poor, your tired, your huddled masses yearning to breathe free. During the Statue of Liberty. And I was teaching a personal narrative unit at the time with the theme of a kindness or a regret. And so I gave my students an example of the time that I was on the subway. And I was on an uptown train, and suddenly this homeless woman entered. And New Yorkers were doing what New Yorkers do, right? Head in the phone, earplugs in. But her voice had this desperation that really pierced my soul. And I had this moment of, I knew what to do, go do something. And then I had this battle between head and heart. Meanwhile, this older woman walks directly at her. She puts her arms around her, just holds her, says, "Cry, baby, cry. Let it all out." Here I was at the time, taking all my meditation classes at the Shambhala Center, wondering if I was supposed to be breathing in my right nostril or my left, filling my bookshelves with books of compassion. Yet, when the opportunity to act came, I didn't have the ovaries enough to just do what I felt was right. That day, I witnessed kindness, and I left with regret. Heroines dare to show up. Kind of like that time my friend Mary Claude could tell that I was pushing myself far too hard in this quest to be a strong and independent and fearless woman. And without my asking, she showed up at my door, flowers in hand, and we ended up having an impromptu healing session in which I lay in a fetal position, and she drummed over me. And I cried tears that I think cleared out my entire ancestral line. Heroines dare to show up. So 3 years later, life brings me full circle, and I'm back living and working in the city that never sleeps. And I find myself on an uptown train.
And it's hot, and it's New York. It's hot, and everyone's crowded, and all of a sudden we get stuck between two stations. And I hear a woman on the other end of the train having a meltdown. A real panic, and it sounded like the tantrum of a small child. And so that totally got my nerves going. My anxiety is like, oh. And then all of a sudden I heard a little voice that said, "Who's helping?" And then another voice that said, "You." Yeah, you. So I walked through the crowded train to the woman, and I asked if I could hold her hand. And the woman next to me is happy that I'm there, and between the two of us, we provide some relief. It was nothing like no ta-da, but we provide some relief. We get to the next train station, the doors open, and we all go our separate ways. But what I learned in this moment is that the beauty of the school of life is that it gives you so many chances to get the lesson right. The opportunity presented itself, and this time I dared to show up. Now, Pope Francis, in a recent TED Talk, called for a revolution of tenderness. He said, you can't misquote the Pope. He said, tenderness means to use our eyes to see the other, our ears to hear the other, to listen to the children, the poor, those who are afraid of the future, to listen also to the silent cry of our common home, of our sick and polluted earth. Tenderness means to use our hands and our hearts to comfort the other, to take care of those in need. This talk really spoke to me. It spoke to the revolutionary in me, the fighter in me. It spoke, even in spite of the fact that I don't have children of my own, it spoke to the mother in me. And most of all, it spoke to that little girl in me, a very highly sensitive little girl who at some point disappeared when the realities of this world didn't match up to the way she imagined it in her mind's eye. I have to confess, though, so in trying to explore how my story was connected to this larger mythological heroine's journey, I ended up conflating a bit of fantasy and reality and actually developed a bit of a Wonder Woman complex. Which it sounds funny, but the truth is that I believed it was my sacred duty alone to defend the world. And this false belief, this myth that we perpetuate of the solo superhero weighed on my soul in terrible ways. Luckily, another friend of mine from my teaching days showed up. What was a kind of lonely birthday for me. And she took me out to dinner, and she gave me this gift. If you can't see it, it is the Wonder Woman of many races and many creeds. And it reminded me that day that the future isn't me, it's we. Because the truth is that I am that girl, and you are that girl. And by girl, I'm just going to take the liberty to redefine as any man, woman, boy, gender non-conforming human with a propensity towards kindness. Yeah. Yeah. Together, we can change the world. And so I am asking you today that when the opportunity presents itself, no matter how small, it's even better if it's small, or how large, let's dare to show up with tenderness and love. Thank you.